When Jiang Zhuyun fled, I deliberately pointed the pursuers in the wrong direction. Of all people, I pointed them toward the woman in his heart. I heard that the girl chose death over Dishna and impaled herself on a sword. His eyes reddened slightly. He was silent for a long time before saying, "Everyone has their fate. She was simply unlucky." Later I took him in to tend his wounds. When he returned to the capital and resumed his post, the first thing he did was petition for an imperial edict to marry me. I was overjoyed, thinking it a heaven-sent match. But on our wedding night I sat alone in an empty room. After that, one concubine after another was brought in. Year after year they trapped me within the deep courtyard until I was dead inside. On his deathbed he finally agreed to see me once more. "Not killing you is already returning a life-saving favor," he said, looking down at me, uttering each word. "Every moment I spent with you made me feel disgusted." Only then did I understand he had been resentful of me all along. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to the moment I misdirected the pursuers. The soldiers were questioning escaped fugitives. I shook my head lightly. "This girl is blind. I saw nothing." I had not expected that some things cannot be avoided. In the midnight downpour, Axie hurried to my door. "Miss," a woman in a yellow robe came outside holding a man covered in blood, begging we take them in. I wrapped a robe around me and walked through the rain curtain toward the front hall. At one glance I recognized her, Luo Yang, the woman in Jiang Zhuyun's heart. She was soaked through, supporting the unconscious Jiang Zhuyun on her shoulder. Rain mixed with blood ran down and dripped to the ground, staining the blue bricks red. In an instant, memories of my past life surged like a tide. I instinctively stepped back and was about to tell Axie to shut the door. "Miss," Luo Yang's voice trembled, "please take us in for one night. He is badly wounded." "I cannot keep people here," I interrupted coldly. "There's a ruined temple 5 li east. Go shelter there." I turned to leave and heard a thud behind me. Turning back, Luo Yang had knelt. "Please, he won't make it to the temple. We are not criminals, just people who offended the wrong people. When he wakes we will leave." Rain pelted her. She was shivering, but she held him up with all her strength so he wouldn't collapse in the mud. Jiang Zhuyun seemed to stir. In his fevered, dazed eyes water gathered. "Don't go, don't leave me." Luo Yang froze and tears fell suddenly. Watching her, I suddenly remembered her fate in my past life, choosing death rather than surrender, crashing onto a sword. Well then, if I hadn't pointed them her way, she might not have died so horribly. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. My voice was hoarse. "Consider it a repayment." Axie was quick and without being told went to prepare the west wing, bringing clean clothes and medicine. I stood on the corridor watching Axie help Luo Yang settle him down. Near dawn, Luo Yang came out to look for me. "Miss, Luo Yang, will never forget this kindness. Once we are settled, we will repay you richly." I stepped back to avoid her bow. "No need. I am blind and saw nothing tonight. I remember no one. Leave on your own when you're ready. We will have nothing to do with each other after." Luo Yang was stunned. As if she hadn't expected me to be so absolute, she opened her mouth, then fell silent. I returned to my room. Outside, at some point the rain had stopped. I lay on the couch, listening to the drops from the eaves, and slowly closed my eyes. This life, I only want to keep far away from them. Kujiang was hurt far more severely than in his past life. He ran a high fever for 2 days before it finally subsided. Luo Yang cared for Jiang Zhuyun while also helping about the residents with sweeping and cleaning. Aishi had told her it wasn't necessary. I was reading and, without looking up, asked, "Why?" Aishi imitated Luo Yang's posture, pinched her throat and said, "You said you would stay only one night, yet shamelessly lingered this long. Doing a little is only right." I didn't reply, but the next time I ran into Luo Yang, I didn't turn and walk away. Luo Yang began to come find me often to talk. At first it was mere small talk, but somehow it turned to Jiang Zhuyun. "He looks cold, but is actually the most attentive." When she spoke of Jiang Zhuyun, a gentle light shimmered in her eyes and brows. Once, I casually said I wanted the crispy mountains from the south of the city. Without a word he rode off. He stood in line for half an hour. When he came back most of the ice had melted, and he was upset for a long while. The next day before dawn he went again. saying he wanted to catch it while it was cool. Her voice softened as she told how Jiang Zhuyun searched the whole city for a glazed lantern for her birthday, how he never took off his clothes and stayed by her side for 3 nights when she fell ill, how he remembered every word she said and every wish she had. When she said these things, her gaze was as tender as moonlight soaked in water. That tenderness came from being treated with true, steadfast kindness. I listened quietly, and suddenly thought of my past life. A thug blocked my way in the market. He happened to pass by and with 2 or 3 punches knocked the man down. Relatives in the clan, taking advantage of my father's grave illness, wanted to marry me off casually and swallow up the Song family's estate. It was also Jiang Zhuyun who stood up and said he would marry me later. After he recovered, he returned to the capital to resume his post. Everyone said he wouldn't come back, but I waited for the imperial edict granting our marriage, and I waited for the splendid bridal sedan in which he came to wed me. I once thought that was true affection. Now, hearing Luo Yang speak of their past, I suddenly realized that his kindness to me was nothing more than a casual gesture. He never asked what I liked, never remembered my birthday when I fell ill, he didn't even come to see me. Later he married me, letting me wither away in that deep, sprawling household until the lamps burned out and the oil ran dry. Only then did I realize he hadn't married me to be good to me, he'd done it to keep me trapped at his side, to slowly torment me. Sincerity and pretense, so that's how different they truly are. 3 But I no longer have the heart to think about these things. My father returned from his travels and stayed home for 3 days. Then he had to head south again to do business in medicinal herbs. In my previous life, it was this very trip that injured my father's leg in the end. It dragged on into a grave illness. My tall, strapping father wasted away to skin and bones. If he hadn't been so gravely ill, how would Jiang Zhuyun have married me so easily, only to cast me aside like worthless trash? Father, please don't go on this business trip. My tone was firmer than ever before. My father was taken aback. Then he laughed. What nonsense are you talking about? The goods are all prepared. When I say you can't go, you can't. The more I spoke, the more my nose stung, and my voice took on a slight choke. Only then did my father helplessly raise his hand. All right, I'll do as you say. Why are you crying now? I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Father rubbed the stubble on his chin and suddenly spoke. But you have to promise me one thing. What? You're not that young anymore. It's time to start meeting potential partners. He smiled like an old fox. This time I've come back just to get this done. If you won't agree, then I'll go back to running my business. I agree. The rest of Father's words stuck in his throat. He probably never imagined I'd agree so readily. After all, every time I brought it up before, I found 100 excuses to evade it. He eyed me suspiciously for a long while, and only when he was sure I wasn't brushing him off did he nod in satisfaction. I lowered my gaze and stirred the tea in my cup, calm and unruffled. Left and right, everything has changed in this lifetime. If we are to meet, then let us meet. At least Father can be more at ease. Just as they were speaking, A11 came running in a hurry. Miss, that young Master Jiang has woken up. He says he wants to thank you in person. I frowned. I've been deliberately avoiding them these past few days so as not to get too entangled. Reply for me. No need. But A11 looked troubled. Miss Luo said young Master Jiang insisted on coming, and even split his wound open. She couldn't stop him. If his hurt even worse, won't he have to stay even longer? I sighed, got up, and headed to the west wing. Just as I reached the door, I heard low voices coming from inside. Why are you so foolish? The sword was only aimed to nick my arm, but you threw yourself at me anyway. Luo Yang propped him up against the headboard, scolding him as she spoke. Jiang Zhuyun looked at her, taking the reprimand without complaint, his eyes full of tender care. It was at this moment that I entered the room. Jiang Zhuyun lifted his eyes slightly, and the warmth in them vanished in an instant. I heard, he said slowly, his voice hoarse, that I was saved by a blind girl. I stood by the door and didn't respond. That's fine, too. A sarcastic curve tugged at the corner of his mouth, his tone indifferent. If you can't see anything, you won't be so self-righteous. For Luo Yang gently tugged at his sleeve from the side, but he pretended not to notice. Clearly, this is our first time meeting in this life. Yet his words are barbed beneath the silk. This shouldn't be unless he, too, has been reborn. I stand at the doorway, suddenly feeling like laughing. In his previous life, he resented me for pointing him the wrong way, and he resented it for a lifetime. Now that we both remember, why bother with all these roundabout words? Sir is right. I met his gaze and spoke unhurriedly. There are some people whose eyes are perfectly fine, yet their hearts are blind. They can't tell who saved them and who owes them. Jiang Zhuyun's expression shifted slightly. I said nothing more and turned to leave, but I had taken only a few steps when hurried footsteps sounded behind me. Miss Song, please wait. Luo Yang hurried after her, his face apologetic. Zhuyun hurt his wrist, then had a 2-day high fever. He's been groggy and a bit short-tempered. If anything he said was offensive, I'll apologize to you. On his behalf, she was about to bow, and I held out my hand to stop her. Don't bother. I looked at her. When do you plan to leave? Luo Yang was startled, a hint of embarrassment crossing her face. Our people will probably take 7 more days to arrive. We had said to stay only for 1 night, but then stay another 7 days. I cut her off. 7 days from now, I will show no mercy. 7 days, neither long nor short. I endured decades in my past life. Why should I care about these 7 days? 5 from the 2nd day on, I made a point of avoiding the West Wing even more. Even when Luo Yang came to speak with me, I used the excuse that I was physically exhausted. I thought life would go on peacefully like this, but unexpectedly, in the afternoon Axie rushed in, flustered. Miss, something's wrong. A few thugs have shown up outside, saying they want to collect some kind of protection money. The master went to the estate early this morning, and the steward can't stop them. I set down the account book, my brows knitting slightly. In my previous life, it was these very people who, whenever father was away, stirred up trouble every few days later. They even cornered me in an alley to extort money. It was Jiang Zhuyun's appearance that finally dealt with them. Report it to the authorities. We did. But the Yaman said this kind of ruffian is the hardest to deal with. Lock them up for a few days and they're out again. Before she could finish speaking, the noise outside had already begun. Tell your master to come out. I got up and walked out. In the front courtyard, a few thugs with crooked hats were blocking the second gate. The ringleader's eyes lit up the moment he saw me. Yo, the Song family's young lady is indeed quite a beauty. Impudent. Before I could even get angry, Luo Yang darted out from who knows where and immediately said, my sister is someone you think you can lust after. My brother-in-law is right inside. If you dare act presumptuous, be careful. You won't be able to handle the consequences. I was taken aback. The hooligan seemed cowed by the aura. Your brother-in-law is. Luo Yang straightened her back and continued, a 4th rank, sword-bearing imperial guard before the throne. Jiang Zhuyun, if you don't believe me, go right ahead and barge in. Since ancient times, commoners never fight officials. The ringleader spat in unwilling frustration, then resentfully led his people away. Luo Yang turned around, a hint of embarrassment appearing on her face. Miss Song, please don't blame me for taking it upon myself. I was just afraid. I moved my lips and ultimately accepted this favor. I only hope this matter won't come to Jiang Zhuyun's ears. With that thought, I caught a glimpse of a figure under the corridor from the corner of my eye. Jiang Zhuyun was behind the pillar, face pale, but his gaze was chillingly cold. Such a good brother-in-law. 6. His tone was sardonic. Luo Yang was a bit flustered. Zhuyun, that's not what I meant. You go in first. Jiang Zhuyun cut her off. Luo Yang bit her lip and lowered her head as she walked away. Only he and I were left in the corridor. I thought you'd learn to be smarter. He walked over slowly and stopped 3 feet in front of me, keeping the same distance as in our previous life. Didn't expect you to resort to the same tactics, couldn't bring yourself to do it, so you egged Luo Yang on to speak up for you. I looked up at him, finding it all rather laughable. I didn't do anything. Believe it or not, Jiang Zhuyun's mockery deepened. If you hadn't hinted at something, how would she have come up with the excuse of being my sister-in-law? In our previous life, you deliberately misled her and got her killed. In this life, you put on a show of taking us in. Do you think I can't see what you're up to? What am I up to? I met his gaze head-on, neither dodging nor avoiding it. I saved you, both in our past life and in this one. Jiang Zhuyun showed a just as I thought expression. You want to use your favor to demand repayment. I suddenly felt very tired in this life. I haven't done anything, yet he still wants to pin the blame on me. Young Master Jiang, you can rest assured, I've never taken that small favor to heart. Jiang Zhuyun was taken aback. It was nothing more than a simple gesture. My voice is very soft. Even if it were just a rain-soaked tanuki, I would still save it. 7. Axi later told me that Luo Yang and Jiang Zhuyun had a fierce quarrel. Early the next morning, Luo Yang and Jiang Zhuyun entered my courtyard one after the other. Luo Yang walked in front, holding a scroll of paintings in her hands, a smile on her face. Jiang Zhuyun followed behind, his expression indifferent, revealing no emotion. Miss Song. Luo Yang stepped forward and handed over the scroll. That day's incident was our fault. Zhuyun knows he misunderstood you and feels really bad about it. He specially painted this piece as an apology. I glanced at the scroll but didn't reach for it. Jiang Zhuyun coughed beside me, his tone neither warm nor cold. It was originally drawn for Yang Yang, and I added a few strokes for you along the way. Along the way, I mocked myself inwardly in his eyes. I'm afraid I should be grateful to the point of tears just for this along the way. No need. My expression remained calm and unruffled. The blind cannot appreciate these. Jiang Zhuyun's face darkened. Luo Yang hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Miss Song, we didn't think this through, but this painting, Zhuyun spent hours on it, and the wound on her wrist even split open. Please accept it. I still didn't take the painting. Jiang Zhuyun let out a derisive laugh. No need to persuade her, she just doesn't think much of it. As he spoke, he snatched the scroll from Luo Yang's hands and casually tossed it under the corridor before turning to leave. No need. If it's lost, so be it. Luo Yang hurried after him, chasing him into the distance. The courtyard fell silent again. Axi ran over to pick up the scroll, unrolled it, and exclaimed in surprise, "Miss, it's a painting of you decocting medicine. What a fine piece. Only, miss, you never go into the kitchen." My heart gave a sudden jolt, and a sense of absurdity surged up at once. What he drew was me from a past life. In the past life, his injuries were not yet healed, and I stayed in the kitchen every day, personally preparing medicine for him. She said he would stand in for me, but I refused. I only feel that if I put in a little more care, perhaps he could recover a little faster. There was one time when the fire was too strong and the medicine pot tipped over. Scalding decoction spilled onto my arm, leaving a large scar while applying medicine to me. Jiang Zhuyun promised, "I will never fail you." 8. Thinking back now, what did he mean by that sentence? After all, was he truly moved by my devoted heart, or had he long calculated how to let me waste my life? Probably the latter. Miss, Ashi's voice pulled me back to reality. Is this painting really not wanted? No. Ashi hesitated for a moment, then stammered, "Then, can I have it? We've just run out of kindling in the kitchen, and I forgot to buy more. This would work perfectly to start a fire, right?" I glanced at her and couldn't help curling my lips into a smile. "As you like." Axi happily ran off hugging the scroll. I hadn't gone far when I bumped into someone right at the door. It was Jiang Zhuyun. Returned again. He stood at the courtyard gate, his gaze falling on the scroll in Ashi's arms, his expression somewhat subtle. Jiang Zhuyun said nothing. I stood under the eaves and met his eyes. He suddenly let out a brief laugh. "I thought Miss Song truly couldn't care less, but it turns out you were just being stubborn." With that, he turned and left. This time, he really was gone. I stood there holding the scroll, looking utterly bewildered. "Miss, what does he mean by that?" My expression remained calm. "He's having a hysterical fit." 9. Jiang Zhuyun had taken to strolling around the courtyard. He picked a spray of flowering crabapple in the garden, saying he would pin it in Luo Yang's hair. He personally steamed a plate of sugar cakes in the kitchen, saying Luo Yang loved to eat them. When the two of them spoke under the corridor, a few casual words from him would coax Luo Yang into beaming with delight. A11 would purse her lips every time she passed by. "Miss, just look at him, he's like a peacock fanning its tail." I didn't even look up. "It has nothing to do with us, I think. He's clearly putting on a show for you," Axi muttered. "Every time you pass by, his voice gets louder. And Haitang too, she only picks them when you're around." I turned a page of the book. "You've got it wrong." Axie looked like she had more to say, but seeing that I truly didn't care, she fell silent on father's side. They're urging quite insistently. The day for meeting has been set for the day after tomorrow. The other party's surname is Xie, a merchant from Jiangnan. It's said the family is well off, and he's an upright person. Before we've even met, they've already sent someone over with a meeting gift in the pavilion. Axie held a brocade box and asked with a grin, "Miss, what did young Master Xie send you?" I opened it to take a look. It was a white jade hairpin, carved with a half-blooming magnolia. The craftsmanship was exquisite, and the jade was warm and lustrous. There was also a note pressed at the bottom of the box. I heard that Miss loves magnolias, so I specially sought out this hairpin as a token of my regard. I was slightly taken aback. After my father died in my previous life, no one ever cared about what I liked. Jiang Zhuyun didn't know, and he didn't care, but this Mr. Xie, whom I had never met, took the trouble to find out, put it away. I returned the hairpin to its box. Axie took it and was about to leave when an unexpected guest arrived at the pavilion, Jiang Zhuyun, standing there before I knew it, his gaze falling on the brocade box. "You remember, today is my birthday." His gaze fell on my face, his expression somewhat complicated. Only then did I notice he had changed into a brand new dark robe today, the cuffs embroidered with cloud patterns. I remembered today was indeed his birthday. On this day in my previous life, I had personally set afloat a whole pond of lotus lanterns for him, saying, "I hope Jiang Zhuyun has all his wishes come true." He replied, "My only wish is that Luo Yang would trade her life for yours." I stood frozen, my eyes reddening. He added, unhurriedly, "Just joking. Are you going to be mad?" That was the first birthday I celebrated for Jiang Zhuyun, and the last. Later I married into the Jiang family and no longer even had the right to speak to him. I had actually already forgotten Jiang Zhuyun's birthday. Hard to say whether it was happiness or something else. I only felt that, given a second chance, fortunately I had truly let go. 10. What a coincidence today. No one has come to present the first gift yet. His gaze fell again on the brocade box, his tone ambiguous. I understood in my heart, he must have thought the brocade box was meant for him. I smiled and turned to leave. Leaving the pavilion, I walked through the corridor to pay my respects to my father. Passing the garden, I saw Jiang Zhuyun standing by the pond in the distance, as if waiting for someone. I deliberately took the long way and went out through the side gate. After paying respects for my father's peace and returning, I ran into him again at the second gate. He was bowing his head to tidy the begonia at Luo Yang's temple, his movements very intimate, while his peripheral gaze skimmed my way, almost imperceptibly. I kept my eyes straight ahead and went directly back to my own courtyard. At dinner, Axie ran in, face alight with excitement, her tone full of gossip. "Miss, young Master Jiang is standing guard at our courtyard gate." I asked him what he was doing here, and he actually said the magpies at our gate are adorable. I took a closer look, and those are clearly swallows. My hand paused as I picked up the food. "Miss, could he be waiting for you?" "I don't know. I kept eating, and I don't want to know." A11 tactfully shut his mouth, but some people just don't know better. Jiang Zhuyun barged straight in and opened with an angry question. "Song Jiao, how much longer are you going to play these tricks?" I put down my chopsticks and looked up at him. He stood at the doorway, backlit, his expression on his face indistinct, but that smothered anger, unable to be contained, clearly swept over. "What trick?" I asked. "Don't play dumb." He came in, sat down opposite me, and stared at me as if trying to see right through me. "First you went out of your way to avoid me, then you had the maid shut the courtyard gate tight, and now you won't even say a word to me. Do you think that will make me look at you any more?" I looked at him for a long moment, then suddenly laughed. "Mr. Jiang, did you misunderstand something?" "I misunderstood." He let out a cold laugh, his tone full of mockery. "You've always been like this. Clearly you want it badly, yet you insist on pretending you don't care at all, playing hard to get, retreating to advance. Do you think I can't see through it?" I picked up the teacup and took a gentle sip. "So, did you figure it out?" I set the cup down, my tone as calm as still water. "In this life, I truly don't care about you anymore." 11. Jiang Zhuyun's expression froze for a moment. "Impossible." He blurted it out, then quickly returned To that same cold, mocking look, if you truly don't care, why do you take a detour every time you see me? Because I don't want to run into you. Why won't you even say a word? Because there's nothing to say. If you've truly let it go, just greet me openly. Why skulk around? Because I don't want to have anything to do with you. His face went a bit pale, his lips moved as if he wanted to say something. But in our past life, you clearly. I took a deep breath and cut him off. Jiang Zhuyun. That was a matter of a past life. You mean very little to me now. Who you are kind to is none of my concern. Whether it's your birthday or your death anniversary is none of my concern either. Understand? Jiang Zhuyun was struck dumb by those words. In the silence, I actually saw his eyes grow slightly red before. I had never seen his eyes redden for me, not in my past life, and it shouldn't happen in this one either. It's late. Luo Yang is still waiting for you. I reminded him softly. 11 in the blink of an eye, the 7 days we had agreed upon had arrived. When Luo Yang came to bid farewell, it was at the finest hour of spring. In a day the sun shone brightly, lighting up the whole courtyard. Miss Song, thank you for sheltering me these past days. She was still wearing that goose-yellow dress from when they first met. With a begonia pinned in her black hair by Jiang Zhuyun, she was more delicate than the flower. Zhuyun's wound has healed, he can travel now, and our people are waiting outside the city. We'll set out tonight. I nodded, neither trying to keep them nor asking more. Luo Yang hesitated, wanting to speak but stopping, and after a moment's pause, finally opened her mouth. Miss Song, Zhuyun, he's been in a bad mood these past few days and said some things he shouldn't have. Please don't take it to heart. I smiled, my tone even. Miss Luo, you're overthinking it. There's nothing much between him and me to begin with, so it's not a matter of taking it to heart. She looked at me, her gaze complicated, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end said nothing. In the end, she only offered a solemn bow. Luo Yang wishes Miss Song health and smooth fortune. I stood under the corridor, watching her figure fade into the bright spring light. In my past life, I carelessly pointed in her direction, and she ran into a sword and died. In this life, as long as she can live well, that's enough. I turned back into the room and changed my clothes. There's one more important matter today. Meeting young Master Xie. The meeting place is the tea house father arranged. A private room is perfumed with a faint agarwood scent, and outside the window you can see a rippling pool of spring water. Xie Yunshu arrived a moment before me. When I entered, he was standing by the window taking in the view. Hearing footsteps, he turned around, cupped his hands in greeting, and smiled as gently as an April spring breeze. Miss Song, I returned the gesture and sat down opposite him. His movements as he poured tea were light and steady. I've heard Miss Song is quite adept at managing her family's business. Truly admirable. He gently pushed the teacup toward me, his tone carrying a sincere note of praise. My family is also in trade. Perhaps we could exchange insights. Miss Song, 12. I'm a little surprised. In my previous life, I also met someone for a marriage prospect. When he learned that I showed my face in public to do business, he didn't say anything outright, but there was a hint of disapproval in his eyes. But Xie Yunshu isn't like that. You flatter me, young Master Xie. I set down the teacup, my tone calm. It's merely a matter of keeping the family business. To preserve what's been built is already no easy feat. Xie Yunshu shook his head. When I first took over the family business, I also thought it was enough to just hold on. Later I realized that in this world, if you don't move forward you fall back. I lifted my eyes slightly, inexplicably. Feeling a bit interested, we talked for a long time. From the fabric shop's supply channels to the ways of running a tea house, from his observations at the Jiangnan medicine market to the tolls and taxes on trade routes across regions, Xie Yunshu was experienced and knowledgeable. Whether it was Jiangnan's silkworms or the furs from beyond the frontier, he could bring them up offhand. We went back and forth, sentence after sentence, as if we were old friends, unnoticed. The sun outside the window had already tilted west. I stood up to take my leave, but he suddenly called out to stop me. Miss Song. He stood at the tea house entrance, the setting sun falling over him, making him seem even more gentle. I have a question I'd like to ask you. What do you think of me? I was taken aback. I hadn't expected him to be so direct. There was a trace of apprehension on his face, his earlobes slightly flushed. I know this is a bit abrupt, he said, but I think it's better to be straightforward than to beat around the bush. I felt a fondness the moment I saw Miss Song. I wonder if you'd be willing to see me again. I suddenly remembered my past life. Jiang Zhuyun had never asked me like this. Even when I thought he was most sincere toward me, he petitioned for an imperial marriage decree without ever asking whether I was willing. Yet the man before me is cautious enough to ask even about meeting next time. I suddenly felt something loosen in my heart. I looked at him and started to laugh. Of course I have to meet him. 13 by the time I got home, the day had fully arrived. Axie chattered all the way, saying Master Xie is really nice and speaks so gently. I let her babble, and in my heart I actually felt that it was quite nice to have found someone like that. But this good mood was shattered the moment we entered the gate. Jiang Zhuyun stood in the courtyard, dressed in black, as if he'd been waiting a long time. Luo Yang wasn't there. She had probably been sent away by him. You're back. His tone was flat. My steps halted. Why are you still here? Luo Yang said. I changed my mind. I came to find you. He looked at me. His expression was complicated, as if he had seen my doubt. He was silent for a long moment before speaking. I've thought it over. What you did before was nothing more than being jealous of Luo Yang. I understand. And can reason with it. Women, after all, tend to be petty. I stood still, thinking I must have misheard. So, he took a step forward, his tone carrying a kind of condescending largesse. I've decided to take you with me. After we return to the capital, I'll give you the status of a concubine. Luo Yang is kind-hearted and will be able to tolerate you. I looked at him and suddenly wanted to laugh. Have you forgotten that your father will soon fall gravely ill? He continued, however, his voice certain. You are merely a merchant's daughter. How will you protect such a large estate in the future? Your uncles and older cousins are scheming, and there are ruffians who cause trouble every now and then. Without me, you won't be able to hold on. He's still as conceited as ever. I finally let out a laugh. Jiang Zhuyun, did you come here just to tell me this? His brows knit slightly. I looked into his eyes and said softly, I've already set my sights on someone else. And before long I'll be getting married. Jiang Zhuyun's expression froze. I didn't look at his face and said seriously, I went to meet him today. He's a good man, well-mannered and considerate, and we get along. If I marry him, it'll be 100 times better than in my previous life. Jiang Zhuyun's face gradually turned pale. Are you going to marry someone else? I nodded. But in your previous life, you clearly refused. I looked at him, and then, become a living corpse in the Jiang household. Jiang Zhuyun's lips trembled. He couldn't speak for a long time. He finally managed to say with difficulty, Song Jiao, you will regret this. I said nothing and turned back into the room. Behind me, his footsteps finally sounded, step by step, growing more distant. Only then did Axie enter the room, speaking cautiously. Miss, are you all right? It's nothing, I said, my voice calm and even. Starting tomorrow, begin inventorying the dowry. On the 14th we broke up on bad terms. I thought Jiang Zhuyun would give up, but in less than 2 days he was back. At that moment I was organizing the dowry album when Axie burst in a panic. Mr. Jiang is here again. I set down my pen and looked up to see Jiang Zhuyun had already barged in. He was travel-worn, as if he'd been on the road for a long time, yet his eyes were still sharp and carried a trace of determination. Song Jiao, he slapped a letter down on my desk. That Mr. Xie of yours. I investigated him. I glanced at him and didn't move. He's not called Xie Yunshu at all. Jiang Zhuyun sneered. He was originally an escaped slave who stole his master's name plaque to swindle people. I had someone's household register checked. The original Xie Yunshu actually died of illness 3 years ago. Having said that, he stared at me intently. I understand. He is waiting for me to panic, waiting for me to be consumed with regret, waiting for me to cry and beg him to take me away. But I didn't. I only smiled slightly and said, so what if he is? The certainty on Jiang Zhuyun's face vanished in an instant, replaced by an expression of disbelief. Didn't you hear clearly? The man you're going to marry is a swindler, a runaway slave. You, the eldest miss of the Song family, are going to marry someone with such a dubious background. My expression remained calm and unruffled. He's not a runaway slave, he's my future husband. Jiang Zhuyun's eyes reddened again. Song Jiao, are you crazy? You know there's something wrong with him. And you still want to marry him, are you truly blind? Why can't you see? Zhuyun, we should go. Luo Yang had appeared at the doorway at some point, her face terribly pale, but Jiang Zhuyun didn't notice. The way she looked at me was exactly the same as in my previous life, the way I used to look at the beautiful concubines in the manor, with that same pained gaze. Wait a little longer, Jiang Zhuyun replied without even turning her head. We can't wait any longer. Luo Yang's voice carried an unusually firm edge. The contact has already been exposed outside the city. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late. 1-5 Jiang Zhuyun fell silent. Luo Yang walked in and tugged at his sleeve. Zhuyun, he stood where he was, motionless. After a while, he came to himself, turned around, and followed Luo Yang outside. When they reached the doorway, he suddenly stopped, without looking back. Song Jiao, think carefully. That person is trouble. You can't handle him. I didn't say anything. It wasn't until they left that I saw the note Jiang Zhuyun had left, an address. The Jiang residence from my previous life. I shook my head and laughed. He didn't know that I had long suspected Xie Yunshu was off. In my past life, when I was trapped in the Jiang residence, I read all the books in the study. Tucked in one page was a portrait. The man wore an official's robe, his features proper, and beside it were two characters, Lu Ci. At the time the name felt unfamiliar and I only glanced at it before turning the page. But those brows and eyes had unknowingly been etched into the depths of my memory. It wasn't until he sat before me, smiling as he poured me tea, that even though the face was unfamiliar, I recognized him at a glance. He isn't fleeing, he's come to capture Jiang Zhuyun. In that moment, I suddenly thought how absurd the world is. In my past life I was trapped in the Jiang household and, by accident, sketched his portrait. In this life, he actually disguised himself as the object of my attention and sat before me. I know I'm not some celestial beauty. His painstaking efforts to approach me are probably because he knows Jiang Zhuyun is in my house. I pretended to be ignorant and played along with him. He thought he was scheming against me. But he didn't know I was happily using his hand to get Jiang Zhuyun out of the house. Whether it's Jiang Zhuyun or Luo Yang, once they're gone, only then can I truly be at peace. As for whom Lu Ci intends to seize, that's a matter for the court. I'm nothing but a blind-eyed merchant's daughter who knows nothing. She? I said lightly. She poked her head in. Miss, I picked up the note. Burn it. A11 answered and went out with the note. I sit by the window, watching that. Most of the flowering crabapples in the yard have already fallen. Only a few blossoms still cling to the branches, on the verge of falling. Xie Yunshu, no. Lu Ci, will he still come? 1-6 He still came. It was still that tea house, the same seat, even the tea Lu Ci brewed was the same as last time. Who exactly are you? I came straight to the point. He looked slightly taken aback, then smiled. This smile, unlike the gentle refinement of last time, carried a few more hints of rakishness. Miss Song, you are indeed perceptive. He poured the tea well, placing it in front of me as before. I am Lu Ci, an official of the Ministry of Justice. I have been tracking Jiang Zhuyun for a long time and had no choice but to take this measure. I was silent for a moment. At least you're honest. Miss Song had already grown suspicious. If I kept hiding it, it would only be improper. His gaze was calm. However, every word I spoke to you that day came from my true heart. Only my identity and name were often concealed. I lifted the cup, watching the floating leaves in it. Aren't you afraid I'll tell Jiang Zhuyun? Miss Song won't. He spoke with certainty. Why? He looked at me, his gaze clear. Simply because Miss Song wants him to leave too. My hand holding the teacup paused slightly. What else do you need me to do? Lu Ci raised an eyebrow. When the time comes, help me draw Jiang Zhuyun away. I nodded. Then there's only one way. I looked at Lu Ci's expression, my meaning unclear. Lu Ci understood and began to laugh. Miss Song, do you know what it means to pretend to be a married couple with a court official? What's the matter? Are you afraid? I lifted my head and looked straight at him. His eyes were open and honest, his expression neither evasive nor hiding anything. I dare. They slapped hands as an oath. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although in my previous life Jiang Zhuyun did not ultimately fall, this life could still take an unexpected turn. if word got out that I had taken him in, it would inevitably plant the seeds of disaster in the ears of those with ill intent. It would be better to bind myself with Lu Ci, topple Jiang Zhuyun, both to make amends for past deeds and to settle the grudges of my previous life. Returning home, my father was indeed waiting in the main hall. I told him the explanation Lu Ci and I had agreed upon, and my father's face immediately broke into a joyous smile. Good, good, I told you, my girl is so good, how could anyone look down on her? He slapped his thigh. I have to go and prepare more dowry for you, so when you marry you'll hold your head up straight. Father left in a rush. I watched his back, a little helpless. Fine, let him be happy for a few more days. I stood by the window, watching the heavy clouds press down bit by bit. The wind swept through the courtyard, lifting a few fallen leaves, and the last blossoms on the begonia branches were blown apart, drifting to the ground. It's going to rain. 17 Lu Ci and I set the wedding for 3 days later. Father thought it hurried, but still said with a smile, better to set it early. Yunshu, that child, seems fine to me. I looked at father's smile and was momentarily at a loss for words. He didn't know Xie Yunshu's true identity, nor that this marriage was just a trap to draw Jiang Zhuyun out. I didn't tell him, some things are safer the less you know. Lu Ci came for me when the sky was already dark. He'd changed into casual clothes and climbed in through the study's back window. Next time remember to use the door. I didn't even look up, force of habit. He smiled, then sat down in front of me. Everything's been arranged. Are you sure Jiang Zhuyun will come that day? I nodded slightly. He will definitely come. Having been married to Jiang Zhuyun for many years, though we hadn't spent long together, I knew him far too well. The unattainable is always the most desirable. In my previous life I clung to him desperately and he never glanced my way. Now that the love of my past life is by his side, he comes to seek me again and again. There's one more thing. Lu Ci took out a letter and put it on the table. I found this at Jiang Zhuyun's previous hideout. Take a look. I unfolded the paper, glanced once, and my hand froze. The secret report detailed my father's travel route and timing, even marking which mountain path was most prone to accidents. I didn't recognize the name on the signature, but I recognized the handwriting. It was Jiang Zhuyun's. He had planned it all along, have my father injured, fall gravely ill, and finally marry me into the Jiang family with all our wealth. So everything in my past life, from beginning to end, had been a plot. Miss Song, Lu Ci called softly. I forced down my trembling, my voice steady. I know, the wedding will proceed as planned. What will come, let it come. Lu Ci looked at me, hesitated, and finally nodded. I've arranged people. You won't be in danger. No. He rose and walked to the window, then looked back at me. Song Jiao, if you find this too difficult. Not difficult, I interrupted him. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. He said no more, climbed through the window, and disappeared into the night. My fingertips dug into my flesh. Memories of my past life surfaced, and in the end only one thought filled me. Jiang Zhuyun, I will make you pay your blood debt with blood. 18 arrived soon enough. The wedding day, I sat in my bridal gown in the room, listening to the firecrackers and the guests' clamor outside. 11 was doing my hair, muttering auspicious words, her voice tinged with sobs. Don't cry, I sighed. I'm not never coming back, miss, she sniffed. I'm just happy. I said nothing. The woman in the bronze mirror had features like a painting, her wedding dress blazing like fire. Identical to the day I married Jiang Zhuyun in my previous life, only my state of mind was now utterly different. In that past life today, I was overjoyed to marry the man I loved, but today, my heart was as calm as still water, merely awaiting an end. The auspicious hour was near. As Axie had just helped me to my feet, we heard a commotion in the courtyard. Someone had broken in. My heart leapt up sharply, then fell gently. They're here. At the moment the door was kicked open, I saw Jiang Zhuyun. He was travel-worn, his eyes so red they seemed about to bleed. Song Jiao, he glanced over the bridal dress I wore, his voice so hoarse it was almost inaudible. Are you really going to marry him? I stood in the center of the main room, looking at him across a few paces. Between us it was always like this, those few steps neither near nor far. yet impossible to cross. I looked at him and said, word by word, so what if I am? Jiang Zhuyun's lips trembled slightly, then he suddenly strode toward me and grabbed my wrist. Come with me, let go. I'm not letting go. There was a hint of madness in Jiang Zhuyun's voice. In our past lives you waited so long for me, why can't you wait again in this one? I was wrong. I know I was wrong, isn't that enough? I looked at him, finding it both absurd and laughable. He didn't truly understand his mistake. He was just used to me always standing in place waiting for him. The moment I left, he panicked. 19. Jiang Zhuyun. My voice was so calm it even surprised me. You came at the right time. There are some things that need to be made completely clear. He froze for a moment, the force of his grip easing a little. I yanked my hand free and took a step back. The next moment, Lu Xi led people surging in from all directions, sealing off the courtyard so tightly not even water could get through. Jiang Zhuyun's face instantly changed color. You, he suddenly looked at me, his eyes full of disbelief. You're actually helping him. I let out a soft laugh. Haven't you always wanted to know why I insist on marrying him? His pupils suddenly contracted, my smile deepened. Of course, to execute you on the spot. Lu Xi stepped forward and unfolded the seized secret report before him. Jiang Zhuyun, you colluded with the rebels and plotted against the common people. The evidence is conclusive. Jiang Zhuyun's face gradually turned deathly pale. I watched quietly without saying a word. When he was taken away, he turned back and looked at me. That look was so complex, impossible to put into words. The courtyard fell quiet again. The guests had long since dispersed, leaving only red paper scattered everywhere, fluttering in the wind. I've wronged you, Lu Xi said softly. I shook my head. There's nothing to feel wronged about. Being able to take revenge with my own hands is enough for me. 20. Jiang Zhuyun was sentenced to be executed after the autumn assizes. News came from the prison saying Jiang Zhu wanted to see me, according to Lu Xi. After Jiang Zhuyun learned where the pursuers had gone that day, she kept muttering about how she regretted it. I let out a wry smile. So even if I hadn't guided them earlier, Luo Yang would still have died. The pursuers have always been heading in that direction. I never went to see Jiang Zhuyun, just asked to pass on a message to tell him. I regret it too. What I regret most is not killing him the first time we met. 21. When news of Jiang Zhuyun reached them again, the execution had already ended. Luo Yang followed as well. I stared at the clouds in the sky for a long time without saying anything. Suddenly, Lu Xi's voice came from behind me. Miss Song. He smiled with a touch of mischievousness. After we go back, how do you plan to explain it to Uncle Song? I thought for a moment. Just say that, given the urgency that day, we took expedient measures. We did it for the greater good. Is Uncle Song still pushing you to meet someone? I shot him a glare. Then tell him to wait a little longer. Lu Xi burst out laughing, his laughter hearty and completely different from the gentle and refined manner he had before. All right, we'll do as Miss Song says. Before I could turn to leave, Lu Xi called out to me again. Miss Song. I looked back at him. He blinked. We will meet again. Next time, I'll use my real name. The end. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. See you in the next video.